For centuries, we were told a lie, that Christopher Columbus discovered the Americas, that before 1492, the oceans were empty, uncharted, and unknown. But this is not history, this is propaganda. Because long before Columbus set sail, Africans had already crossed those same oceans, mapping, trading, and sharing knowledge that reshaped civilizations, from West Africa to the Americas, from Egypt to the Caribbean. The evidence of Africa's ancient sailors still whispers through ruins, artifacts, and DNA. The age of exploration did not begin with Europe. It began with Africa's sons and daughters, the first masters of the sea. Before we look westward, we must look inward, to the roots of Africa's maritime brilliance. Africa was never a continent of isolation. Its coasts, from the Nile Delta to the Swahili shores, were alive with ships, ports, and sea routes. The ancient Egyptians built reed ships that sailed the Mediterranean and the Red Sea as early as 3000 BCE. Their vessels reached the land of Punt in today's Somalia, trading incense, gold, and exotic animals. Further south, the Swahili coast thrived with coral-built cities, Tau fleets, and merchants trading with Arabia, India, and even China. By the time Europe was learning to tie a sail, Africans had already mastered monsoon winds, navigation by stars, and long-distance sea travel. During the reign of Queen Hatshepsut, Egypt launched one of history's earliest documented naval expeditions. Her grand fleet, 5 ships, each over 70 feet long, sailed down the Red Sea toward Punt, the land of the gods. They brought back gold, ebony, myrrh, trees, and panther skins, proof that Africans were conducting organized, state-sponsored sea voyages thousands of years before Columbus. In the carvings of Deir el-Bahari, Hatshepsut's ships are depicted with precision, sails raised, crews in motion, and exotic goods being unloaded. These are not myths. These are the first blueprints of global trade, written in stone. Egypt's sailors did not fear the ocean. They conquered it. Across the Sahara, another maritime tradition flourished, this time on the Atlantic coast of West Africa. The Mand and Soninke peoples, ancestors of the Mali and Ghana empires, were known to build great wooden boats for fishing, transport, and coastal trade. By 1000 CE, the kingdoms of Senegambia and Mali had fleets that could navigate the Gambia and Niger rivers, and beyond them, the open sea. Arab historians recorded their skill. Al-Masudi, writing in the 10th century, described African sailors who spoke of lands across the Western Ocean, lands rich with trees and rivers, far beyond the horizon. They were not explorers in search of conquest. They were navigators in search of connection. Then came one of history's greatest untold stories, the voyage of Mansa Abu Bakr II, the emperor of Mali who dared to sail into the unknown. According to Arab historian Olumari, Abu Bakr II launched an expedition of 200 ships to explore what lay beyond the Atlantic Ocean. Only one ship returned. Its captain spoke of a powerful current that pulled the rest westward into the horizon. Abu Bakr did not give up. He handed his throne to his brother Mansa Musa, and set out himself with 2,000 ships carrying sailors, architects, and scholars. He was never seen again. But centuries later, when Columbus reached the New World, he found West African symbols, crops, and gold already present. Who had brought them there? The answer might lie in the winds of the Atlantic, and the courage of an African king who believed the world was connected. Mainstream history dismissed African voyages as legends, but science and archaeology are rewriting that story in Central and South America. Artifacts have been discovered that link back to Africa, such as Olmec heads, carved from basalt, depicting distinctly African facial features. Ancient American crops like tobacco and coca have been found in Egyptian mummies, proof that transatlantic contact existed. Long before Columbus, even DNA studies reveal genetic Traces of West African lineage among indigenous peoples of the Americas, predating European arrival, and across the Caribbean. Oral traditions speak of dark-skinned visitors who came from the east, on great canoes, bringing trade and wisdom. The evidence is not missing. It's been ignored. In ancient Mexico, the Olmec civilization rose as one of the first great societies of the Americas, building colossal stone heads, temples, and complex calendars. Their art shows features resembling African physiognomy, broad noses, full lips, braided hairstyles, features absent in other native groups of the region. Some historians suggest the Olmecs were influenced by African travelers who arrived centuries before Columbus, sharing technologies of agriculture, stonework, and astronomy. It was not a conquest, it was an exchange, a bridge of knowledge between two worlds that modern history refuses to see. In European libraries hide maps that rewrite the oceans. Among them is the Peary race map, drawn in 1513, showing parts of South America and even Antarctica with uncanny accuracy. But here's the mystery. The cartographer himself wrote that he compiled it from ancient maps from the time of Alexander and the pharaohs. Those older maps came from African and Arab sources, legacies of Egypt's scholars and Mali's navigators. How could they chart the Americas before Columbus? Because the world had already been mapped by those who sailed before him. Africans who saw beyond the horizon. The Atlantic itself tells the story. Powerful ocean streams, the Canary Current and the Equatorial Countercurrent, flow directly from West Africa to South America. Modern sailors know, once you leave Senegal's coast, the wind and water carry you straight to Brazil. For the sailors of Mali or Ghana, who already mastered river navigation and large canoes, this wasn't an obstacle, it was a highway. Nature itself connected Africa and the Americas long before Europe dared to try. Across the Caribbean and South America, fragments of African presence remain. Words like Mandinga, Bantu, and Malemba echo in local dialects. Ritual drums, agricultural techniques, and architectural patterns bear unmistakable African roots, older than the slave trade. In Brazil, petroglyphs and oral legends speak of visitors with dark skin who arrived before the white men, teaching new rhythms and crops. Even the Taino people of the Caribbean honored a god they described as coming from the east in a great boat. These are not coincidences. They are cultural footprints left by forgotten travelers to cross oceans. You need more than courage. You need science. African shipbuilders perfected hull design, sail balance, and navigation long before Europe's age of sail. The Egyptians built vessels with keels and mortise and tenon joints. Concepts copied centuries later by Greek and Roman engineers. West African carpenters developed dugout canoes, so large they could carry 80 men and tons of cargo. Arab chroniclers marveled at these ships, calling them like palaces on water. African navigation relied on astronomy, ocean patterns, and bird migrations, the same methods later praised in Polynesian exploration. Their science was practical, precise, and powerful. Beyond the Atlantic, another ocean tells its secrets. In the Pacific, Polynesian oral histories speak of traders arriving from the west, people with dark skin and braided hair who brought iron and bananas. Genetic and botanical studies confirm it. African crops such as bananas, yams, and bottle gourds reached the Pacific Islands centuries before European contact. Trade routes likely connected East Africa's Swahili coast with Indonesia and Polynesia through the Indian Ocean monsoon network. Africa was not isolated, it was the beating heart of global exchange. When cultures meet, they share more than goods, they share spirit. Across the Atlantic world, echoes of African spirituality survived in the symbols of the sun, the serpent, and the ancestral drum in the Andes. The symbol of the spiral, representing life's cycle, mirrors the Adinkra symbols of West Africa. The reverence for ancestors, rhythm, and balance runs from Yoruba temples to native ceremonies. These are threads of an older fabric, a reminder that Africa's wisdom didn't just travel with chains. It sailed with purpose, long before the world forgot. So why don't we learn this in school? Because colonial history needed a hero, and it chose Columbus. To justify conquest, Europe erased Africa's role in global exploration. The story of Abu Bakr II vanished from textbooks. The Olmec sculptures were called coincidence. African maps were hidden, mislabeled, or destroyed. The silence wasn't ignorance, it was design. Because if the world knew Africa had crossed the oceans first, the myth of European superiority would collapse. But truth, like the tide, always returns. Today, African historians, archaeologists, and storytellers are piecing together what was buried. From Cairo's archives to the jungles of Mexico, the evidence grows stronger each year. The ocean no longer divides us, it connects us again. And when we look west across those waters, we don't see Columbus's trail. We see the reflection of Mansa Abu Bakr's sails, of Egyptian ships bound for Punt, of the Swahili dhows that once rode the monsoon winds. The first navigators of the world were not European explorers, they were Africans, the original cartographers of the earth. Before Columbus ever dreamed of crossing the sea, Africa had already mapped the world. Its sailors charted the winds, its scholars measured the stars, and its kings dared to chase horizons others feared. This is the story history tried to erase, and the truth Africa Untold was born to reclaim.